Hello and welcome back to another insightful episode of With Synapse podcast series. I'm your host Chetvi Shah, and today we're diving into a crucial decision-making dilemma faced by every spine specialist worldwide. To operate or not, decision-making in degenerative spine disorders. And to guide us through this nuanced topic, we have with us Dr. Amit Sharma, a renowned consultant, minimally invasive spine surgeon based in Mumbai. Dr. Amit is trained in orthopedics at KM Hospital in Mumbai and has further honed his expertise in the USA at leading institutes like the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York and the Children's Hospital in New Orleans. Having performed over 3,000 spine surgeries, his practice ranges from minimally invasive procedures to complex deformity corrections. So, welcome to the show, Doctor, and it is such an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you.
So, Doctor, could you start by sharing your general approach to, evaluating patients with degenerative spine disorders, and what are the factors guiding your decision for surgical versus conservative management?
So the thing is that degenerative spine disorders are not a disease; it's an aging process. And we are talking about the patient who came to me for evaluation and treatment. But everyone who you see walking on the road is probably suffering from the degenerative spine disorder. But that doesn't mean that they are symptomatic. Out of them, few become symptomatic and they come and see us. And in the most of these patients, they get better with the conservative treatment, which mostly include medicine, physiotherapy, some activity restrictions, etc. So one thing that like spondylosis, which has kind of has been propagated as a disease in people's mind. Degenerative spinal disorders are also not a disease; it's just an aging process which all of us are going to have. So out of these, the ones who are significantly symptomatic are seen by us, and most of them get better with the conservative treatment, and some of them who don't, then we take further step of further evaluating them and maybe subjecting them to surgery.
Yeah, I think that's a clear and practical approach, Doctor. So on the similar notes, only my next question would be, so how do you counsel patients with, who present with significant radiological findings but minimal symptoms?
So, see, we don't have to treat the MRI finding for X-ray finding. We are treating the patient. So, and we see it, not very uncommonly that the patients come with an already done MRI or X-ray and then they come and show that, doctor, I have a L4-5 disc. I ask them, what's your problem? They say, I have an L4-5 disc. Then I have to ask them, no, what's your actual symptom? And then they say, I have minimum pain in the back or, minimum radiating pain. So then, the same conversation which I'm having with you now, I had to explain the same thing to the patient that it's not the MRI we are treating, we are treating you. So we are treating your symptoms. And if your symptoms are minimum as compared to what we are seeing on the MRI or X-ray, then probably we don't have to worry about it. We are not going to ignore what we are seeing on the MRI or X-ray, but definitely, my priority is the patient symptom, because that's why the patient has come to me. They did not come to me to get MRI treated. They came to me to get themselves treated. So if their symptoms themselves are, as a surgeon, my approach is that whether I can help this patient surgically. But if the patient is not suffering enough, then probably they don't need my surgical help. They just need guidance to direct them in the proper direction, whether you need to go for medical treatment or sometimes, spinal injections. But if MRI findings or X-ray findings are severe, but the patient's symptoms are not that severe, then yes, obviously we are not subjecting them to surgery. Now, having said that, there are situations where, something inside the MRI is disastrous, recently I saw a patient. She had some intramedullary lesion. Now, I don't deal with them, so I referred her to a neurosurgeon. But this was an intramedullary lesion, and patient was a young female. She got the MRI done just out of curiosity, that because she knew when she had symptoms in the past, that she knew that she had some lesion in the medullary, in the spinal cord. So this time she came with another MRI and that lesion had progressed. Now she did this MRI just out of curiosity. Her symptoms were kind of static. So I mean, these kind of cases where if you wait and tomorrow you might land up with a big trouble and then which might be irreversible. So we had to kind of, deal with, even if the patient is asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic. But these kind of scenarios are far and few in the field of spine. So most of the time what we are dealing with is the patient symptoms.
Yeah, I think also distinguishing then is really important, the symptoms and asymptomatic also sometimes. So now, doctor, there is growing interest in, motion preserving techniques for degenerative spine disorders. So what is your approach on arthroplasty versus fusion in these patients?
We have to understand the arthroplasty works beautifully when it comes to any joint. Like it has shown, like years of success in the knee replacement, hip replacement, nowadays shoulder and elbow and wrist, like every joint is kind of, has a potential to get replaced. Spine, the problem is that, like when we talk about the replacement, we only replace the disc. We don't replace the entire bone or, like entire, all the joints, because spine is made up of, every segment has 3 joints, disc and the facet joints behind. So it's very uncommon for the patient to have only disc degeneration and not have facetal arthropathy. Now for these patients, if I change only the disc, then the facetal arthropathy will still be troubling the patient. So even though I have replaced the disc and probably the discogenic pain is gone, but that facetal arthropathy pain might be still be troubling the patient. So the primary aim of doing the surgery was to get rid of that axial pain. Axial pain means, like the pain in the spine. Like when we talk about the cervical spine, the neck pain, and when we talk about the lumbar spine, the back pain, without the radicular pain. So when we are dealing with the disc replacement surgery, we are trying to treat the axial pain. But if even after replacing the disc, if those affected facet joints are still keep on troubling you, then probably your aim of surgery is not fulfilled. So you have to be very, very careful when you recommend somebody disc replacement surgery. Now, disc replacement surgery works wonderfully in the cervical spine. And I do see some literature where this is done even in the older age patients, and when they remove the osteophytes and they try to recreate that motion in the intervertebral area in the cervical spine when the motion was already lost because of formation of osteophytes and all. So there are some aggressive school of thoughts where they are doing disc replacement even in the very old age patient, especially in the cervical spine. But in lumbar spine, probably the disc replacement has not shown that much superiority, especially if the facet joints are also affected. So when you are doing a disc replacement, maybe in a young patient where the discs are only affected and it has starting to get affected, and the facet joints are not yet affected, probably these are the good candidates. But the issue is that in India, especially where the disc replacement devices are very, very costly. Maybe the cost of one device is equal to having one entire surgery done, and not having a 100% surety. Probably that's why these devices have not been very prevalent. And most of the time when the patients are paying from their pocket, and they are even now, even in Mumbai, many patients are not covered by the insurance, and even if the insurance is there, it's limited. So experimenting with these patients is kind of we also have to think twice before we kind of think of doing a disc replacement. Okay, karke dekh lete hain, let's do it and then we'll see. So indications are very, very limited when it comes to lumbar spine, because many of these early patients who are probably the candidate for disc replacement surgery, and where the facet joints are not affected, we try to conserve them. We don't kind of subject them to surgery. In the cervical spine, yes, you can do the disc replacement in the younger age group patient, and means my cutoff age limit is up to 50 years. But after that, probably I'll be thinking about the fusion. Now, another thing is that when you do disc replacement surgery, your decompression has to be thorough. In cervical spine, we are used to doing the decompression from the front, from the anterior aspect. So it goes hand in hand with the with the decompression and disc replacement. But in lumbar spine, we are used to doing the decompression from behind. Even though when you are removing the disc from the front in lumbar spine, you can do the discectomy also from the front. But because we are if there is a associated decompression also required while doing the disc replacement, in lumbar spine, maybe we'll find ourselves little kind of constrained. And secondly, the principles of indirect decompression cannot be applied to a disc replacement surgery, because you don't want to stuff your intervertebral area with the bigger size disc, because then it will be under a lot of stress and can probably wear out very fast. So essentially, cervical spine, my threshold is not very high when doing the disc replacement surgery. In lumbar spine, my threshold is very, very high for doing a disc replacement surgery.
Correct. I think that was very insightful, doctor. Just a quick, question that popped up in my mind was, what is the proportion of younger patients these days? Is it like more than the usual ones that were there before? And how do you approach younger patients in such cases?
So young patients, we'll have to define young. Young, my definition of young is changing as I'm aging. So basically, suppose, below 40, 45, we consider young, and above, probably if we consider old. So in younger age group patients, sometimes, recently I saw a 24-year-old, and she's recently got married with a big disc prolapse, having back pain as well as leg pain. Now, I was counseling them about, conservative treatment versus spinal injections versus surgery. And then in surgery, I kind of, spoke to them about both discectomy only or doing a fusion. So basically, I did not speak to fusion about them. I did not speak about fusion to them. So the patient's mother asked me, like, doctor, but tomorrow when she's going to get pregnant, if that remaining disc going to affect her, because when her weight will increase and her body weight will increase and she will also have fetus inside, And that time probably it will be very, very difficult to take care of the situation, because she'll be carrying a baby. So, that question hit me hard. Then I thought probably, if you are dealing with a younger age group patient, probably it's better to, fuse, especially if they are having the back pain component also. Because, number one, because with patient's mother said that, she'll be pregnant and she'll be, carrying heavy weight. So, if you just do the discectomy, then tomorrow her disc will degenerate again. And in pregnancy, anyway, the joint become loose, so there is a higher chance of disc prolapse. And the second reason is that because they have the full life ahead. Somebody who is old, 60 or 70, we do a decompression only or discectomy, So they don't have that much life. Their activities are limited. So even doing decompression alone can probably be sufficient for them. But for a younger age group patient, it might be, prudent, especially if they have associated significant back pain, also to fuse them, so that once and for all, it has been taken care of.
Correct. Very insightful, doctor. Thank you for sharing that. So, doctor, now, with aging populations and increasing spine surgeries globally, what do you think are the future challenges in the surgical decision making for degenerative disorders?
So I think by now, spine, the science is ever evolving, and so is the spine surgery. But today we have very clear-cut, a diagnostic criteria and management criteria for most of the spinal issues. So in terms of the technological advancement and all, I think we are quite there where we need to be. As I said, but again, the new devices and new technology and new techniques will keep on coming. But the other thing, I think we'll have to see that, the load of spine surgery, so I work in Mumbai. In Mumbai alone, there are 100 spine surgeons, and everyone is busy, So one of my seniors said that the number of spine surgeries are proportionate to the number of spine surgeons. And this is true because it's not that, people are doing unnecessary surgery. If just, the approach has become wider, the fellows trained under us abroad, they are going to the second and third year cities and they are doing surgeries over there also. So I think in terms of the spine surgery, the numbers are definitely going to increase, primarily because of better diagnostic criteria. Secondly, because the people are more trying to get independent. They don't want to be dependent. So we have that little bit of cultural thing coming to India also. That so when I was getting trained in US, 86-year-old comes and say that doctor, I want to have the spine surgery. because I want to be independent, because I'm living alone. I remember that there was a patient on whom I had done the 17th, spine surgery. Just because, because they want to be independent, they don't want to be living in any sort of pain. And to some extent, I think that culture is coming to India also. Now, still there are some myths about the spine surgery in India, like long bed rest and maybe not so sure results. But I think people are getting more and more open to having their spine surgery done. So I think we have enough workforce in the society now to cater to these patients, as long as as long as technological things are available. Because that's the other thing. In the smaller setup, many of these newer modalities are not there. So that is probably one of the challenges that many of these advanced tools like O-arm or navigation may not be available at every place. So I think that's the only challenge I see in the near future, that because these things are extremely costly, and most of the second tier cities don't have it. Even in first tier cities, only few hospitals have these high-end gadgets. So, and especially in the government hospital where there is a big patient load. So I think that is the only challenge I see. But in terms of tackling the growing spine surgery needing population, I don't see any issue with that, because there are sufficient number of spine surgeons.
Correct, doctor. So I think those are the challenges that will also shape the future of spine care, I think. So now, doctor, lastly, what advice would you give to young spine surgeons when it comes to choosing the right patient for the surgery?
So that's a very interesting question. I remember my old days, like when I started my practice, and that time, everything, every patient who comes to us, we think of fitting that patient into the surgical criteria, because we are trying to prove ourselves that, okay, I can give the results. Patient will bring the patient in the society, our name will spread. Secondly, our experience is limited, even though we all have come from we have done the fellowships and even we have done our orthopedic training, but that personal experience is yet limited because we are just starting the practice. So we don't know which procedure is going to give the patient good results and which one will not, especially in our hand. So in the beginning, it's very important to stick to the very clear-cut indications. You do decompression only when you see significant stenosis or disc prolapse. You do instrumentation only when there is a clear-cut indication. You don't instrument every black disc, every degenerated disc you see on the MRI, especially if it's not matching with the patient symptom. So coming back to the same thing, again, remember that we are not treating an MRI, we are treating the patient. So unless the patient is significantly symptomatic, so my criteria for offering patient surgery is the patient should be suffering enough. We don't treat for, we don't operate for smaller issues. Then the patient should be suffering for a long duration. It should not happen that, okay, 1 week of problem and let's come on the table. Then they should have tried the other modality of treatment, like, medicines, physiotherapy, acuity restriction, if required, spinal injection. And fourth, last but not the least, is that their symptoms should be matching the pathology which we see on the MRI and X-ray, and we should be confident by taking care of that pathology, we can sort of guarantee the patient that, okay, your symptom will be gone. Now, there is no 100% guarantee, but at least literature-based and our experience-based, some confirmation should be there in our mind. I think the biggest problem which happens is that when we already know that we don't know whether this patient will get better or not, and still we are offering the surgery. So that thing definitely needs to be avoided. So slow and steady wins the race. So be slow in the beginning, and you might be doing less cases. But I think once you develop your name, once you develop a good practice, these things are just a matter of time when you will have more number of cases, and and if you have to prove yourself. So doing an indicated case which has given a good result to the patient will probably prove yourself more in the society rather than doing too many cases out of which many are not happy and then they are spreading the bad name in the society. And we know that spine surgery is anyway not very favored thing in India. So it's more of a responsibility on us to do the right kind of cases, especially in the beginning part of practice where it is going to affect our future also as a surgeon.
Correct. And I think that's such an excellent guidance for the next generation of spine surgeons, Doctor. So, Doctor, as we wrap up today's session, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and actually practical wisdom on surgical decision making in degenerative spine disorders. So, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, MedFinance.
And I'm sure our listeners will find this discussion immensely valuable as well. And to our listeners, remember, if you're a healthcare professional eager to delve deeper into medical topics or have questions, do not hesitate to join us on the Medicine Apps platform. Medicine Apps platform is not just a resource, it's a dynamic space where you can connect with your medical peers, participate in meaningful discussions, and contribute to the ongoing evolution of healthcare. So until you meet again, stay aware.